Hello YouTube. I've got a 1994 Ford F150. This one's got the 5.0 liter and a 5-speed manual transmission. Customer complaint today is that the gear shift is extremely vague, oftentimes hard to get it into any sort of gear, and you can see here it's just kind of flopping all over the place. So we're going to take this guy apart and figure out what is going on with it. But just to illustrate, I'll try to get it in the first gear. First gear should be about here, okay? But even when it's in gear, you can see that, look at that. It's slopping all over the place. This is probably one of the worst instances of this that I've seen in a while. Yeah, to pull it into the shop, I couldn't even really keep it in first. It kept, I don't know, I didn't want to have too much gear clash, so I ended up putting it in second and put it in a 4-low in second just to get it into the shop, because that was one gear I could reliably find. But even then, I mean, look at that play. So we'll get the camera set up so that you can see basically the process that I go through to get these shifters apart. Right, so the first step is to get the shift boot out of the way. In order to do that, there are 4 usually Phillips screws kind of hidden in this trim panel right here. Just pull up the boot just a little bit and you'll see the hole here that the Phillips screw is in. And there's another one up there, and then again the same on the other corners. So go ahead and do that now. See if I could work around the camera. All right, once the screws are out, this should lift right out. We don't even have to bother removing the screws if you don't want. Just pull the boot out of the way. So the next piece here is just a little insulating piece. It just keeps road noise down. It is held in by the shift boot, so that should just come up. Okay, next on the agenda is to remove the shifter lever itself. And to do that, you've got to take this 17mm nut off, right? Unscrew it from this side, and then screw it into the opposite side here. Screw it into the opposite side here to pull this pin out. The pin's got like a tapered fit to it. All right. So a gear wrench or something similar often helps. And I've already broken torque on this if you're wondering why it was already loose. And unfortunately for me, it looks like somebody has been in here before. But these trucks are pretty old nowadays, so I guess that's not terribly surprising. All right, so we got the nut off. I'm just gonna swap it to the other side here. Okay, it looks like the bolt's spinning, so I'm just gonna pull it out. A lot of the times the bolt will just start coming out. But in this case, the bolt just slid out. So now we just pull the shifter straight up, and that should get you to where you can access these 3 bolts right here. Something I will note is before you pull the shift lever out, try to get the transmission into neutral if you can find it. I think that's neutral. So the next step is to remove the 3 screws here. From the factory, these are normally Torx screws. Like I said, it appears that somebody's been here before, so in this case these are Phillips screws, or what appears to be Phillips. So I'll go ahead and pull those off now. All right, at this point we want to be super careful here. We don't want to drop anything inside the transmission. So normally this plate will come right off. All right, got my gloves on. I'm pulling out what's left of the upper bushing. There should have been a spring washer, and that is nowhere to be found. I'm not seeing it on this side either. All right, so this is the shifter ball. At this point, you should be able to just pull it straight out. Okay. Next, there's usually, well, here, next you want to be able to get these pins out here and here. Normally I use like a punch, and we'll punch it out. All right, as I said before, you don't want to drop anything into that hole. So before I attempt to punch these pins out, I'll go ahead and shove a rag or something in there, just so I have peace of mind that nothing's going to fall in. All right, let's see if I can get this guy punched out here. I got a punch and a hammer. It's an awkward angle. So we have part of the pin sticking out here. I'm gonna go try to find a little pry bar or something. All right, let's see if I can make something work here. Yeah, that's gonna be kind of tight there. I'm gonna continue trying to punch it from this side. Okay, maybe this pry tool can get it now. Usually they're actually a lot tighter than this, so I'm a little worried about this repair actually working out. But so we'll get this blasted out. As you can see, this pin's pretty much broke off at the end. All right, so we'll try to do the same with the other side here. All right, let's see if I can make something happen here. Okay. Son of a gun. Okay, that's doing something. I have a different one that has a striking cap, but I can't find it at the moment. This is just a cheapy one from Napa, so I don't care. All right. Okay. All right, it's about to get loud here. Got it. All right, so this pin's severely worn too. What these pins do is they ride in the shifter right here, and that's what prevents the shifter from twisting, kind of like in this direction or that direction. Keeps the shifter so that it can pivot straight up and down and left and right, but not diagonally. All right. So once those two pins are out, we'll pull the remaining bits of the bushing. And it looks like there's a wave washer here. All right. Now we'll do our best to pull all this stuff out of the hole without letting it fall into the hole. You might want to use a shop vac or something if you have that as an option. You can see that a little piece of plastic dropped in and hit the shift fork here. So I'll see if I can get that out. But the plastic bushing, really not a big deal if it gets in the hole a little bit. I'm planning on flushing the transmission out anyway. So I'll clean this hole up. I'll probably find a smaller rag that I can put in the hole so that I can scrape more effectively the remaining bits and pieces of this. All right, so I've got it cleaned out within reason. I really don't like using Dorman parts. I actually wanted to order the shift bushing and whatnot from a different place, but that place just simply refuses to ship to places like where I live in Alaska. I noticed they won't ship to Hawaii either. So I picked this up at a local parts store. The reason I don't like the Dorman stuff is because it's made in China. The stuff just does not last. As you can see, the unit that I pulled out earlier was also an aftermarket Dorman part, as evidenced by the Dorman wings on the old cap. All right, so once we've got everything cleaned out as best as we can within reason, it's time to start putting everything back together. So we're going to start off with the wave washer that comes with the kit. Go ahead and drop that in there. Next would be the bushing here. These relief cuts are for those pins that we punched out. So we'll go ahead and set this in, getting those lined up with the holes for those pins. We want to get it as aligned as we can. All right, from here, it's time to punch these pins through. All right, so I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on these just because the holes that they go into are a little bit wallered out. I mean, this top hat assembly on this transmission actually should get replaced, to be honest. It's just too old, too wallered out. So we want to give it a good fighting chance. So just go ahead and put a little bit of Loctite on it. And I'll discuss with the customer what our options are. So we can use the pry bar here to slowly get it worked in. Really, these ought to be put in with the transmission out, but for illustration purposes, I will do it here in situ. All right, so next, the second pin, much the same thing. I'm gonna put a little bit of Loctite on it just to kind of give it a fighting chance. This old work truck probably won't be on the road too much longer if we're being realistic. So do what we can. All right, got a good amount of Loctite on there, a little bit more for good measure. And then same thing, we'll push it in, and you might have to wiggle the bushing a little bit to get things to come through. And like so, we got the pins in, and now I like to lube the bushing with some fluid film. The Dorman instructions say to use grease with this. I have reason to believe that these Chinese-made bushings don't hold up to grease. I think it actually swells them. This fluid film doesn't tend to react with plastic or rubber, so we'll just give it a good bit of lube there. And then from here, we'll install the shift ball, and remembering that the notch here for the shifter faces forward. So I'll also give this a little douse of spray here. Just to make sure everything is nicely lubricated. All right. Next up is the next bushing, which I've already pre-lubed. All right, same thing. Relief cuts go where the pins are, like so. All right. Normally, there's another washer that goes on top of this bushing here. It's not present on this vehicle. The Dorman kit does not come with it, unfortunately. So in this case, we're just going to be forced to put her together as is. I might try to find the washer from the wrecking yard or something if the customer so desires. So next, put this hat on. It's got a nice gasket. No lube required, really. You might want to put a little bit of lube in this hole here to facilitate installation. And just slowly push it on. All right. Get the 3 holes lined up, and then put the 3 screws in. Since we don't have the original torque screws, I'm going to utilize the screws that came with the Dorman kit, which are Phillips head, which those of you who've known me long enough know that I detest Phillips screws, mostly because of their poor inherent design, which allows for cam out. That's another discussion for another day. So I don't know the torque spec for this off the top of my head. If I find a torque spec, I will put it in the video description. Basically, you just want to run these in slowly and evenly as possible and just snug her down. They're not, it's only going into aluminum, and all this does really is a cap. All right, so I'm going to take this nut off of the pin here, and we'll put the shifter back on. So we have one last piece to go, and this is just a dust shield for the top hat here. And it just kind of sits on top as far as I can tell. That's what the instructions say. The Ford one doesn't have this piece. All right, I've got that secondary rubber boot thing placed on the shift tower, or the shift stub. As you can see here, that's just it goes around this top lip here, so that's how it should be oriented. And from here we can install the shift lever. All right. Once it gets snug, that indicates that this tapered bolt or pin, or whatever you want to call it, has tightened itself to where it needs to be. All right, snug. All right, got you a different angle here. Maybe the lighting will work out. I'll put the noise insulator back in. Very important to slide it around until you can see the bolt holes or the screw holes lining up. That'll make your job so much easier once you get the shifter boot back together. All right, so now just stretch this bad boy back on. All right, ensure that everything's lined up. And then start screwing everything back together. And if your holes are lined up, it makes the job so much easier. This is sometimes the hardest part of this whole job, is getting this shifter boot back in place. But if you get that sound insulator lined up, usually that makes quick work out of these. All right, so here we go. Wow, everything is way tighter now. So I could find first, finally, it's not hitting the dashboard anymore. It's pretty tight. I'm gonna tell the owner about those pins being kind of loose in the top housing there, the shift tower, and see what he wants to do about it. But for now, we'll call this a fix, and at least it illustrates how you should do this bushing job. Anyway, I hope this video helps, guys. If you like it, please click the like button, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so you can be notified next time I upload a video like this.